Let's tackle a question that's, well, fundamental to all life, but we almost never stop to think about it. What do our cells actually eat? Seriously. The answer is the secret behind how we grow, how we heal, really how we exist from one moment to the next.
Okay, think about the last time you got a paper cut. It just fixes itself, right? In a few days, it's gone. Well, that little everyday miracle is actually a huge mystery that we're about to solve.
So, how does that happen? How does that little gap in your skin just vanish? Where does the new stuff even come from? It's not magic, I promise you. It's biology doing something absolutely incredible.
And here's the answer. It's both simple and kind of mind-blowing. Your body basically kicks off this massive construction project, creating millions upon millions of brand new cells to fill in the gap and rebuild what was damaged. But that leads us to the real question here. Those new cells don't just pop up out of thin air, right? To grow and split and make more of themselves, they need fuel. They need building materials. So, what exactly is their food? So, this picture really highlights a big challenge for scientists. On the left, that's one of our own cells. It's super complex, part of this huge interconnected system. Trying to study it all by itself is, well, it's incredibly difficult. But those bacterial colonies on the right? Way, way simpler. You know, to solve a really complicated problem, scientists often start with a simple one. So, to figure out what our cells eat, we're going to start by studying a much simpler form of life. We're going to build our understanding from the ground up. Think of it like this, trying to figure out what one single person in New York City eats just by watching the whole city. It's pretty much impossible, right? Our cells are like that. They're part of the bustling city of our body, and they rely on delivery systems like our blood to bring them everything they need. So scientists turn to these little powerhouses, single-celled organisms. It's exactly what it sounds like, a complete living thing in one tiny package. It eats, it grows, it makes copies of itself, all on its own. That makes it the perfect simplified model for us to study. So meet our scientific stand-in, Escherichia coli, or as you probably know it, E. coli. Now, I know what you might be thinking, and yeah, some types can make you sick, but the kinds used in labs are totally harmless, and they're super useful because they're easy to grow, and get this, their basic needs are pretty much the same as our own cells. And this brings us to the experiment itself, which I think is just brilliant. What's the best way to figure out what something eats? Well, you set up a giant, all-you-can-eat buffet and just see what they go for. The whole idea is just beautifully simple. You create a series of controlled environments, a buffet with different menus, and then you just watch and see where the bacteria grow the most. The logic is simple. If they grow, they must be eating. Okay, so here's how they do it. They take these petri dishes and fill them with a gel called agar, which is like a base. Then they mix in different amounts of nutrients, basically creating everything from a desert to a 5-star feast. They add the exact same amount of E. coli to every single dish and then pop them all in an incubator, which is just a warm oven set to human body temp. The perfect, cozy spot for these guys to grow.
And here is the menu for our little bacterial buffet. Plate number 1 is the most important one here. It's our control. It has 0 food. This tells us what happens if you do nothing. Then you see the nutrient levels climb. 25%, 50%, 75%, all the way up to plate 5, which is the full 100% feast.
So just for a second, make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen on that first plate with absolutely nothing to eat? And what about that last plate, the one with the full feast? The answer might seem obvious, but actually seeing it, well, that's what makes science so cool. All right, after giving the bacteria some time to do their thing in the warm incubator, it was time to check on them. This is the moment of truth. And when the scientists opened those incubator doors, the answer to our big question wasn't just clear. It was staring them right in the face. So first, let's look at the plate with 0% nutrients. And just as we predicted, it's pretty much empty. Without any food, the bacteria just couldn't multiply, they couldn't grow, nothing. But now, look at this. This is the plate with 100% nutrients. Wow. It is just covered in these dots, these bacterial colonies. Every single one of those dots is like a city of millions and millions of cells that exploded in number, because they had all the food they could possibly want. The difference is just stunning. So the conclusion is totally undeniable.
The more food you provide, the more growth you get. It's a really clear cause and effect relationship. Simple as that.
Okay, so we've figured out what bacteria need. But who cares about bacteria, right? What does this tell us about ourselves? Well, this is where we connect our simple little experiment back to a huge universal rule of all life.
That's us. We are multi-celled organisms. We're not just one cell doing everything. We are a community of trillions of specialized cells, skin cells, nerve cells, bone cells, all working together in these incredibly complex systems. And here's the key difference and the key similarity. A single-celled organism just soaks up food from whatever it's floating around in. Easy. But our cells can't do that. They're stuck deep inside our bodies. That's why we have these delivery systems, like our blood, to bring the nutrients to them. So, the method is different, but the basic need for food, it's exactly the same.
And that is the universal rule. It doesn't matter if you're a single bacterium, a piece of yeast, some algae, or your own skin and bone cells. The bottom line is the same for everyone. To grow, to repair, to multiply, every living cell needs nutrients. It needs to eat, the building blocks of life. So let me just leave you with this one thought. Your body replaces billions of cells every single day. The physical person you are right now is different from the person you were last month. So if all the building blocks are constantly changing, what is it that actually makes you, you? Pretty wild to think about.